Anu Krishna Devidas, our new hostess for the Thursday meeting. um, and I think we're going to stream to Facebook today, aren't we, as well? That would be cool.
We would need the Facebook login to do so because I don't believe it is set
Oh,
up.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, maybe I need to do it from my computer actually. But okay, maybe we'll think about it next week. It's always complicated, isn't it? All these things. Um, yeah, that's very we just having some beautiful reflections here with Ati Sundri on the nature of faith and believing in others and not putting up divisions, right? And actually, this is a really beautiful point. This is another thing I've been thinking about a lot lately too, that it's mentioned that, this is one of the primary characteristics or effects of Maya, the illusory energy, that it causes division, that it causes this sense of division and this sense of, friends, enemies, us, them, this whole, so Maya has this nature to divide and separate, but then the spiritual energy has the opposite nature of unifying, harmonizing, bringing things together. So whenever we're in that space of, like, say someone said or did something we don't like, and then, or even like Achisunri mentioned, this person's like, oh, the homeless people, like other people, not us, right? That's an indicator of being under the influence of the illusory energy, right, of Maya. Whereas when you're thinking from a spiritual perspective, there is no us and them, right? We're all coming from the same place. We're all on a journey in this world, and we're all aiming ultimately to go to the same place, right? Um, and yeah, love your neighbor like you would love yourself. Care for your neighbor like you would care for yourself, right? That's spiritual vision. And lastly, the other thing I wanted to mention on this topic of belief, we're talking about the importance of believing in the sincerity of others, and I have a favorite quote from the English writer E.M. Forster. He says, oh, it's in one of his books actually, and there's some person who's suspect. I don't remember the exact circumstances. Maybe James. He's a British gentleman in the group. He might he might remember if he's read it. But one of the characters is like a victim of a con artist, or there's some situation with the con artist, and and then one character says to, oh, I don't know if I can remember now exactly the words. I don't know if I can remember the exact phrase, but he says, to con others, that's normal, that's a human thing, right? It happens. But okay, the confidence, okay, that's it, I remember now. It says the confidence trick, which nowadays everyone calls a confidence trick, is the work of man. That's what he says. But then he says, but want of confidence, or to not have confidence, that is the work of the devil. In other words, it is normal. This is a world of cheaters and cheated. That's a human thing, right? But if you stop believing in people, that's hellish. That's even worse. To lose all faith in the goodness of others, that's an even lower thing. So I really, really like that too. And that's this whole thing we're doing with spiritual culture, it's all about working with the potential, right? It's actually like we're approaching something invisible, right? So we're seeing the invisible potential in others. We're approaching an invisible potential world that we can't see right now. And we are trying to open up an invisible potential aspect of ourselves, right? That spiritual side. So we're always trying to live in this space of the possibility of things, right? Like so and so is behaving like this with me now in this low negative way, but I believe in their potential to behave in a higher way, right? And so I'm going to try and engage with them in such a way that it's going to open up that higher potential aspect within themselves, right? That's the challenge and the duty actually that we all have as spiritual practitioners, right? Cultivators of the invisible. And it's beautiful actually, if we have a friend, a spiritual friend or guardian who we feel sees us as more than what we actually are. Like that's how I feel about my relationship with our guru Srila Govinda Maharaj. And that's what I'm trying to live up to every day, and failing pretty much every day, but I'm still trying every day. And I'm thinking like how he saw me, how he saw me in this much brighter way than I actually am. That he was trying to raise me up to something that I haven't reached yet. But he was genuinely encouraging me and believing me in that aspect of myself, which is not quite there yet. So that's, it's like if you can have a friend like that or guardian like that, then it's like you're constantly being pulled to stretch yourself to be more than what you are. Our Gurudev, he mentioned actually, he said that my fault is that I believe in everyone. and but he also said, sometimes I get a bad result from that, but mostly I get a good result. Mostly I get a good result. So that's actually the divine nature. That's the divine quality. It's a divine quality, to see the higher aspect in everyone. Anu Krishna, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Didi. So um a few days ago I was just kind of browsing through social media, different talks and philosophies and things. And I came across one man who was sharing something. It's very like similar to what you're saying now. But he was saying when we enter like this world, we choose to strip our knowledge of everything that we know and everything of our true selves and the reality around us. Because in his belief that, they come from, or we come from a place that we know everything, like our mind is liberated and we know all the past times, we know, the creator, we know everything. And we choose to come into realities blinded so we can rediscover ourselves. And each time that we're reborn, I'm saying we learn something new about our own individual selves. And that's the only way we can learn, deeper and deeper of who we are and our connection. Because if we already know everything, how can we learn? And so he was sharing like within that blindness, within that stripped reality, we can fumble our way through and rediscover new things that we wouldn't have discovered in the beginning. So I was seeing if that was relevant to what you're talking to, because it kind of struck a chord of like, I wonder if that's like similar.
I mean, it's not that this is the only world of progress. I can appreciate some aspects of that, and I would say some aspects I would agree with, but not. It's an incomplete view, I would say, because we can also choose to go to the eternal world and go on with the life of progress there. We also hear that the eternal world, there's also, it's not that you enter there and you have some fixed position and service, but that's also progressive. There are also souls who are it's a dynamic plane also. And souls may have one relationship with Krishna, which may evolve into something else, something deeper. Um, so I mean, if we were really being smart, then we wouldn't have chosen to come here at all. We would have chosen to enter that higher plane and go on with our life of progress there. But I mean, definitely, this is a school. This is a place of learning. Um, but how much we were really aware of when we made that decision, I would say not too much, because we hear most souls that they choose to, they're naturally automatically attracted to that, as our Gurudev has said, that magnet of that Krishna magnet. Most souls, when they appear in this marginal zone, then they choose to go to that higher plane. It's a natural attraction that takes place, and it's the vast majority of souls who choose that. But then there's a small, very, very tiny percentage who are somehow or other, not quite knowing what they're getting into, attracted to this lower zone out of some spirit of curiosity, some small sense of some desire to dominate, explore that spirit of domination. And so there's, so yeah, something like that. But certainly some aspects of those comments, we would agree with, for sure. One thing's for sure, that we're students. We can all agree on that. I do have does that make sense, Anu Krishna?
It does. I'm always curious, other people's views and how they see the world around them and their spiritual journey. And so I'm always finding ways to see how it's connected, how how our minds connect, or how we can connect on some level and like move forward from there, right? And so when I heard this, I was like, oh, maybe that's connected in some way. So that's why I wanted to ask and see, what your
I
insight
would
was on.
I would say that what you said is 100% true in some very special cases. Like in the case of some of the Lord's eternal associates. They're under the influence of Yoga Maya, the spiritual energy, and they come to this world with some particular mission. But there's also this forgetfulness because of the influence of Yoga Maya, the spiritual energy. So they're not aware of their own position. They may sometimes, there may be some sense of that, or some clarity may come at times, but most of the time they're in this kind of state of forgetfulness. They're not aware of their high liberated position, but they're living as members of this world for some particular mission. We could say like that, like we think of our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada, these very high exalted souls. We could say they're something like that also, that they're actually eternal members of that eternal world, but they're coming to this world for some particular mission, and they're living in most of the time some kind of state of forgetfulness, and in that forgetfulness they're actually like we can look at the example of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He is like that, and then his Leela is showing a particular journey. Like he shows how he comes to Krishna consciousness, how he comes to Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He's exploring different things and expressing doubts also about the supremacy of Krishna and Srimad Bhagavatam and so many things. And he's voicing these doubts, finding the answers, and finally embracing the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so that whole journey that he showed is a beautiful example for others, because he's expressing doubts that they may also have. And so that like forgetfulness that he has of his own eternal relationship and his own spiritual nature, he's forgotten that on one level for some particular purpose. So yes, I would say that that's definitely true in some very special cases. Well, I actually have quite a long list of questions that was collected from one of our enthusiastic community members in London. Um, so I wasn't able to go through them in London, so I was thinking to go through them in our meeting here today. Um, so, okay. So the first one I did give one answer, but in the meeting last Saturday in London, but I'll maybe just go through it again here. So the first was, what does service to Krishna mean in day-to-day life when you can't always be at the temple? And I did give one answer last week on Saturday, but I wanted to add to that that another way that we can approach this is from the perspective of direct and indirect, right? That there's direct service, when, as it's mentioned here, you're at the temple doing service for Krishna, for the devotees of Krishna. But then there's also indirect service. For example, taking care of our bodies, sleeping. We have to sleep in order to keep our health together, right? So that we can do service to Krishna. We may also see working a job as a type of indirect service, that we are working the job to make money, to take care of ourselves and fulfill our duties. We also may try to give some support to our local temple. So that's also a type of, indirect service. So we can think like that. There's also our life of sadhana, right? Our sadhana, our regulated practice that we'll do at home, that we have some, slot of time that we try to give for our spiritual practice, reading, chanting, hearing. We can also think of that as indirect service. If we're on a high level of devotion, everything we do is pretty much direct service. But at our own level, we could say our sadhana is kind of like keeping us out of trouble and keeping us on track. That we may be chanting our japa, we may not be in a super inspired state, but better than something else that we might be doing. And the thing is that it keeps us in the habit, right? Like we'll have a habit, we'll develop it as a habit. Oh, I'm going to chant at this time for this much time. And the thing is that we may not always feel inspired when we do it, but sometimes we will feel the inspiration. But it won't happen unless we have that habit, right? And so sometimes we may be chanting and our mind is in a million and one other directions, but some special moments when we're chanting, we will actually feel some spiritual connection. And so therefore having some habit to continue with that practice, we may feel, oh, what's the point? I'm not even chanting for real anyway. But just having that habit, it's maximizing our chances, right? And it's also showing our seriousness. It's also showing Krishna, showing our Guru that we're serious about this, that we can't, force ourselves to always be in some, super inspired state where our mind may be struggling with different things, but we're showing that we're committed. And that shows a high level of sincerity. That even if we don't feel like it, we're still doing it. We're telling Krishna, look at me. I'm serious about this. Please give me your mercy. Please give me your attention. Please descend. Please touch my heart. And so if we're steadily doing that with some spirit of sincerity, that will attract his attention. So I think we could also think of our life of sadhana, our practice, as a type of indirect service. Also, when we're hearing, shravanam. Shravanam is actually one of the devotional practices. It may not be that we're directly doing some practical service, but we are becoming informed, right? We're becoming inspired. We're learning about how to serve in the proper mood, right? We're learning more about Krishna, the nature of Krishna, Krishna's associates, and that's deepening our relationship, right? And another thing is that actually we want to do all of our devotional practices with the spirit of offering. Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentions that in one place, like when I'm hearing a talk about Krishna, who's actually the beneficiary of that? That even our hearing will be an offering. I'm hearing this, and what I'm hearing and what I'm gaining, I'm also offering that, to my guru, to Krishna. Whatever comes from this hearing, it is also not for me. For example, this is a crude example, but it does happen. I'm going to attend the arati and I'm gonna pray to make a lot of money, so I can buy the car I want or whatever, right? Or I'm hoping to pass my exams, or these things do happen. We're using our devotional, our spiritual practice as some type of tool to increase our success in various aspects of our lives and in this world. I don't think anyone in this room is like that, but I'm just saying as an example. And there may be some more subtle expressions of that, right? Or another crude example, I'm going to memorize these Bhagavad Gita verses, and my friends are going to be so impressed with me. Like this, in different ways, more gross or subtle. These other aspirations can kind of creep in. So it should be this very pure motivation that whatever practice we're doing, my chanting, my hearing, my reading, whatever it is, my remembering, that it's not for my own gain. It's not for my personal gain. But that is also being done as an offering, even if it's something passive, like hearing. That also we want to be an offering. So, and we were discussing recently, how we can begin every day with that spirit. Like, may this whole day be an offering to you, my Lord. Because it's mentioned actually that for something to classify as bhakti, pure bhakti, shuddha bhakti, it has to be offered before the activity. Because generally, like, our thinking is we'll do something and then we offer it. Like cooking is a good example. We'll cook something and then afterwards we'll offer it to Krishna. But actually that won't count as pure, as a practice of pure devotion. That technically will classify as karma mishra bhakti, means bhakti mixed with karma. So in order for it to be really in the line of bhakti, then when from the morning when you wake up, it's all the meditation and offering. I'm going to the store to buy the ingredients, this is an offering. I'm contemplating what I'm going to cook. That's an offering. Before I start to cook, I'm offering the act of cooking. It's like it's actually a much more beautiful and sweet process, right? Whereas a lot of the time we may cook something, we cook what we want, and then it's like an afterthought, we offer it, right? Something's better than nothing, but just for the sake of the clarifying these points, it's nice to remember this, right? What our ideal actually is, right? Okay, well, I think that's to say on that point. Then the second question was, what are the requirements for initiation and how does one go about it? What happens during an initiation ceremony? When and how do you know you are ready for an initiation? Just wanted an idea of what it involves. Um, okay. Well, before I go to that, does anyone in our group here today, and welcome everyone who's joined, um, does anyone want to add anything to what was just said, or wants to bring up another question, related or unrelated? There's Somya Sham and Vijay Prabhu. Looks like they're in the kitchen at our temple in Limerick. And we have Axel and Julian also here. Palmdale and Navad.
Didi, we were wondering, what is one of Gurudev's favorite preparations? Axel would like to know.
One of Gurudev's favorite preparations. Begum Bhaja means fried egg.
Right.
Fried egg. Another thing he liked. Oh, this is your thinking for Gurudev's festival next week, right? Next Wednesday is our Gurudev's festival. Yeah, begum fried eggplant. Also, what he would have every day is these mashed potato balls with mustard oil. Sadhvi says, I think everyone's favorite pretty much. You can't go wrong with deep fried egg. It's very dangerous, of course. We can't eat it every day. Eggplant is just like a sponge. It soaks up like, like a whole bunch of oil. It's a little scary, actually. What was I saying? Oh, these mashed potato. I forget what they would call them, but mashed potato, and then mixed with mustard oil and chili and salt. It's very simple, but so nice, so nice. And I think, I mean, I've seen it made different ways. You can do it with like fresh green chili. That's very nice. But I think the way that Gurudev would generally have it was with the roasted red dry chili. You make like a chance with your oil, and I think they would call them fireballs actually, because they were so spicy. You roast the red chili. I think that's how Gurudev would have it every day. You roast the red chili, red dried chili in mustard oil. And then you mix that with the mashed potato, and salt. Very simple, very tasty, very spicy. Another thing he liked was poshta. It's that's very nice, poshta. It's you may I can't really tell you the procedure, but it's a poppy seed paste, white poppy seed paste. And it's used with different vegetables. Potatoes can be, aloo poshta with potato. And then there was another vegetable they used to use, which you don't really see that much in the West, but zinga. It's like this like long green vegetable. But you can't go wrong with potato. Yes, Gangalila, nightshades, not the most healthy. Yeah, that's what comes to. Oh, and I would say you have to have sweet rice. You have to have sweet rice. That was something that was important for the sweet rice for offering to Krishna. Actually, he liked that. He offered sweet rice. So that's what comes to mind right now. I can send you something. I have actually a copy of from one of Gurudev's cooks, what they would I can send you that file. I have that. We had a hand raised, I think.
Yeah, I want to say that Gurudev likes stick sabji.
Did he like stick sabji? Really?
Yeah.
It's so funny, I can never understand why people like that.
It's very delicious, actually. I buy something, I made a couple of times. It's so good. Yeah.
For some reason, all Indians, they
Sukta,
love
yeah.
this stick.
Yeah, sukta.
Generally Western.
Yeah. And,
is very nice, but that vegetable, it's this funny vegetable. It has all this fiber in it, and you have to chew it, and it's a very strange vegetable. But Indian persons, probably Vijay, you like it, right?
Yeah, Didi, that's the moringa, isn't it? That's the moringa they sell nowadays. Moringa tea,
I don't know.
moringa thing.
Some people
That's the
say
long
it's
drumstick.
moringa. Drumstick. Is it
Drumstick.
moringa?
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
people
it's
say it is, and
moringa.
Yeah,
some
Yeah,
sambar.
it is
We put it in
moringa.
yeah.
sambar.
We put in the sambar, and yeah, we like it. Samisham doesn't.
I
He takes
do.
out the
Yeah,
fiber.
you guys have
He
the
sticks up
genetics. But yeah, it's very healthy. That's true. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, maybe I'll go back to this question here. Requirements for initiation. Well, the desire to fully surrender oneself. That's I don't really like technical responses, but like let's go to the spirit of the thing. It is that is the only requirement. I'll just stop at that. The desire to fully give oneself to the cause of Mahaprabhu, Guru, and Vaishnava. That your heart must be captured. That's what I'm going to answer. Your heart has to be captured. How does one go about it? Go to a Vaishnava and tell them, my heart has been captured. Please accept me. And what happens during the initiation ceremony? Your heart gets captured further. There's one verse that gives a, how does it go? Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat Purvat Shangshayam. I can't remember it. Srila Sridhar Ananda Krishna, you remember that. You made a poster with that verse, I think. Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat Purvat. It's saying, what is it? What is Diksha, initiation? It is the process by which one receives divine knowledge and all of their previous material nature, it will be cleared. That is real initiation. So we can also ask, are we even initiated in a proper sense? Have we really received divya gyan, divine knowledge? Have we become enlightened by that divine knowledge? And has all of our, previous attachments, prejudices, have they all left us? We are in the process, you could say. We're in the process. So that is the real meaning of initiation. Another way you could say, to forget everything that we know and to embrace the higher view, the broader view that's coming from the sadhu, from the saints, from Shastra, from the scripture. That is actually what real initiation is about, too. And there's that famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, which mentions the three qualities, right, which are necessary for the sincere disciple. Wow, it's just completely gone out of my head right now. Tad vidi, that's it's in the 4th chapter. Tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. It's a verse that describes the qualities of the bona fide disciple and the qualities of the bona fide guru. So pranipatena pariprashnena, so pranipatena, it means a spirit of surrender, that we are leaving behind all of our previous prejudices, misunderstandings, misconceptions about ourselves and the environment, and we are ready to embrace the higher view that's coming with those with higher vision. So that is the first quality mentioned. And then the second, pariprashnena, means some spirit of sincere inquiry, not inquiring idly or or for some personal gain or out of just some, idle curiosity. But sincerely, we're trying to understand, how can I move forward? What is my actual condition, and how can I move forward? And how can I connect more deeply with the higher plane? And this serious and sincere, relevant inquiry, it is often translated like that. So pranipatine, pranipasha, and sevaya. And we want to give ourselves, we want to serve that higher plane. We don't want to make that higher entity an object of our own gain in this world, but we want to be an object to be handled by that super subject that we want to offer ourselves. We want to be engaged as instruments in the divine service of that higher plane. So these are the three qualities that are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And then the qualities of the guru, Jnaninas means they are knowledgeable in the theory, you could say. They're learned in the scripture and the science of devotion. But then also darshina means they're actually having darshan. They're having vision of that higher plane and experience of that higher plane. It's not just a theory. It's not just textbook knowledge, but they actually have some living touch and experience of that higher plane. So that's a helpful verse, which is quoted by our gurus. When and how do you know you are ready for initiation? That can be a tricky one because, often we won't feel qualified, right? And I've seen that, and I've known persons, who have wanted to have a connection, but they don't feel that they're qualified. And I remember actually Somya Sham and Vijay and Nandi here. They waited like 5 years or something before and they were practically running the temple by that time. They were doing all the service, but they still hadn't taken initiation because they didn't feel like they were qualified. And I remember they came and talked to me about it. So that may come up, that we want a connection, but we don't feel that we're qualified. And the truth is that we'll never be qualified. We'll never be fully qualified. Why? Because we're approaching the infinite. We're approaching something of an infinite nature, and we're never going to reach the shore. We're always going to see how we need to stretch and grow more. But then the other, perhaps more important point is that we're not depending on our own strength. We're not depending on our own power. That, it depends on me, right? That I'm going to grow and improve by my own power. That's actually a kind of ego. But we have to depend fully on the higher connection. That it's not down to me, but it's up to them. There can be this mood of I'm going to wait until I'm perfect, right? And then I'll do it. But we have to let that go. We fully want to lean into that higher connection, depend upon that higher connection. And when will we know we're ready? It won't be like that, but we may feel desperate, actually. Or when you're very hungry, you find something to eat. It's not like, oh, how do you know when you're hungry? You'll know, you'll know when you're hungry. There'll be a biological movement in your body. So, we'll feel like that at a certain point. I can't live without this. My whole standard of life has changed. Everything has changed. And my whole standard of happiness has now changed. Everything that previously made me happy, it all looks like garbage now. It all looks like trash. And what's up ahead is quite hazy and vague at the same time. So I'm kind of just stuck in this no man's land. It's a tricky place to be. The in-between. There's this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. It says that in this world, two people are happy: the ignorant and the enlightened. Everyone else is miserable. No, maybe not completely miserable, but we're struggling. We're struggling. When you're ignorant, ignorance is bliss. Life's perfect. Everything's just great. And when you're enlightened, everything's perfect too, because you're seeing everything with spiritual vision. Everything's connected. But it's that in-between zone, the transition, we're in a major transition. That's the challenging part, right? That there's this other verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says there are two types of souls: Nitya Bada and Nitya Mukta. Nitya Bada means eternally conditioned or eternally bound. That's one type. And the other type, Nitya Mukta, eternally liberated. So you look at that and you're like, oh, where's the hope? If I'm eternally conditioned, then I'm just eternally conditioned, but so it can seem a bit hopeless. However, it also mentions that if we can make a connection with the liberated soul, with the perfect guru, the Sadguru, then by their grace hearing, then there may be a transition from eternally bound to eternally liberated. But yes, that it comes down to our lolyam, as I think we were discussing last week, this hunger within us, that we will get to that point of no return, actually, that I can't go back. I'm not quite sure where I'm going or what's up ahead, but I'm definitely not turning back. I know there's nothing for me there. So I may as well take the leap, right, and go forward. And yes, it may be risky. It may be risky. I don't know what's going to happen. I may fail in my quest, but that failure is better than success in the other world. To fail in a very high endeavor, that is a noble thing, actually. That is not a bad thing. And we're also doing so with some higher guardians watching over us. Last week, I was mentioning the devotees in London. They were asking me about the devotee here, Kanu Priya. She's out now. Because she told me once that she wants to take, there's this type of sannyas, right? It's called kshetra sannyas, and it means a vow. You don't hear about it so much, and probably it's less common nowadays, but it's a type of vow that someone takes to spend their whole life in one of the tirthas, in one of the holy places in India, like Vrindavan, Navadvip, or Puri. But Kanupriya told me once she wants to take kshetra sannyas and just stay in the ashram here in Hungary and serve the ashram here and serve Giriraj here. And so the devotees in London were telling me, oh, please tell her to come to London. And I said, well, she told me she wants to make this vow, And then one of the devotees said, it seems quite risky to make a vow like that, because you never know what's going to happen. And then I joked to her and I said, well, you could say that about a lot of things, like I won't get married because I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll fall in love with someone else, or I could say, oh, I'm not gonna become sannyasi or brahmachari because I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if we should think like that, Yeah, I'm not so sure about this, I mean, I really like the whole thing, but I just don't know what's gonna happen, in the future. And if I take initiation, I have to promise, I'm always going to chant and I'm going to follow these principles, but I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't know, like that's not a good space to be in. We want to make some commitment, right? Even if maybe later, there will be some challenges, some struggles, and there may be some this way, that way. But we made that commitment, we'll try to stick to it, right? So like I like to say sometimes, when we're feeling the inspiration, because as conditioned souls in this world, we're a little wishy-washy, right? One day we're feeling the inspiration, another day we're not, So I like to suggest this strategy that when you're feeling the inspiration, you tie yourself down in that moment. Make a commitment, like do something. As soon as you're feeling that, make a phone call, like, hey, sign me up. Go call somebody up, sign me up, okay? Rope me into this, okay? And a few days later, you're gonna be like, why the heck did I do that? Like, I really do not feel like it, but it's like too late. Too late, you already signed up, So we need to like intentionally give ourselves challenges that we know we'll regret later, but we also know are good for us, right? Because then later on, when you're feeling the inspiration again, you're going to be like, oh, thank God. Thank God I didn't flake out on that. Now I'm really appreciating what I did, right? Anu Krishna, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, it's reminding me of being a mother, like I'm committed to my daughter, but then like, what did I get into on
That's
some days?
exactly what I was just typing. Just the moment you say it, I'm like looking back at what was that? I had no idea what's going to play.
In the morning I wake up and I'm so happy to see this bright, happy little face looking back at me. But by the time bath time comes, this little bright face is no longer bright and it's angry at me. And I'm like, I'm just trying to help you. I'm committed to you. But it's challenging. And you're just like, what did I do? What kind of life did I bring or create? But then, you're committed. You're like, you push through it, and you never know what's going to happen. But it reminds me of the motherhood.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect analogy. I like that analogy a lot because there is sometimes this type of mentality with spiritual practitioners, like, oh, I'm only going to do it if I feel like it, and I'm just not feeling it today. So, I don't want to force myself, but that example of motherhood is perfect. It's like you already made a commitment. Oh, sorry, kids, I just don't feel like cooking today. Like, just go get something from the neighbors or, have some McDonald's hamburger or something, or whatever, or, like it doesn't work like that. No, you signed up, you signed up and you have to stick through with that. And some days, as you said so nicely, you're like, you're feeling the love and the inspiration. You're happy to change those diapers, but other days it's going to be like, oh, like, there are lots of other things I'd rather be doing right now. What did I sign up for? So yeah, we want to think of our spiritual practice like that. We can't flake out. We made the commitment. We signed up. There's no backing out. And there will be those moments where we're so grateful that we stuck through. We'll get the reward. We'll feel it within our heart. That reaffirmment, that, what's the word? The affirmment, is that a word? Affirmation. I don't know. I think you all know what I mean. That we'll get that confirmation within our heart that, oh yes, thank goodness, I stuck through with this because this is really what I do want at the deepest level. And then later on, when we made those days when we're feeling it's all a bit dry, remembering those moments of inspiration will help us to push through. That, oh, I know on a deeper, I'm just on some superficial level right now, but I know that deeper within myself, this is really what I want and what I need. And And so we're waiting for those moments to come again. Ramananda Prabhu had your hand raised.
Yes, I just want to say I was listening Param Guru my lecture. He said, die to live, not just live to die, die to live. He said, yeah, he said, die to live, die wholesale. You don't want to just live to die, because we all have to die. There is no death, but if we have a higher guidance, inspiration, then we feel rejuvenated, we feel inspired. Yeah. Just want to share that. Yeah, Guru Maharaj roared like a lion. He died to live, not just live to die. I love his energy and lectures. Thank you.
Die to live. Yes, very beautiful expression. In order to live our divine life, in order to live as our golden selves, right? Then the ego has to die. Well, that's a good meditation, I think, to end on today. Does anyone want to share any final reflections or anything they want to bring up before we close today? And so happy to be here with you all. Beautiful group. And yeah, and sorry about all the confusion with the time zones and links. I think we sorted it out now. I think we'll see. Okay.
Dandavad.
I actually feel called to share
Dan-
this.
Ramdas. Oh, Dandavad.
Yes.
Very good.
Dandavad. Hi,
Right.
Vishaka. How are you?
Hi. It's very good to see you. I'm good. Yeah, I just reached Hungary after a very nice visit to London. And I look forward to later in the year.
Yeah. You're coming in here. It's fantastic news. It's a pity I couldn't get over to London while you were there as well, but next time.
Ramdas, he was in our group to India this last year and the year before too. But he's so quiet and gentle, and I didn't even really notice him in the beginning. But then I started to pick up that he was everybody's favorite person. He was like everybody's best friend in the group. He just so gentle and loving and supporting everyone. And I'll always remember there was this one, it was like a 20-hour train ride we took. And Ramdas, he's a true Irishman. He's brought his kettle and the electricity was so low. So he was boiling. He would spend, hours making cups of tea endless cups of tea for everyone. But because the electricity was so weak, it would take like 10 minutes or 15 minutes to boil one kettle, but so patiently he would sit and make tea so affectionately for everyone. So I'll always remember that, Ramdas. And Ati Sundari, you were saying something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just felt called to share this part of the book of the Loving Search of the Lost Servant as we're talking about Die to Live.
Wonderful.
I was going to read this real quick. It says, the depth of their love is such that they are prepared to sacrifice themselves wholesale, to die to live, for Krishna's slightest satisfaction or whim. But we should remember that whatever is his pleasure, he is the absolute good. So by such a sacrifice, we do not actually die, but live by gaining entrance into a higher plane of dedication. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is written, hearing, speaking about, and remembering Krishna, serving his lotus feet, worshiping his deity form, praying, becoming his servant, cultivating his friendship, and surrendering to him utterly are the 9 processes of devotion. One who cultivates these 9 processes of devotion, offering himself completely to Krishna, can easily attain the ultimate goal of life.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Ati Sundari.
Haribol, Haribol. That's my sister, everyone. Just saying.
Yeah.
Our brother in the room. Okay, well, I think that's a good meditation to end on. Thank you all so much for your association. You're keeping me alive on this path. Jai Shilabhakti Sundar Govinda Deva Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees and sincere seekers. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan. Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Haribo. See you all next time.
Shaka Devi Dasi ki
This is the key, Jai.